I suspect this video is probably not going to interest many of you, but it is something I've wanted to talk about for a while now, since I rewatched this film recently. I have some additional thoughts on it. I am of course talking about Fantastic Four First Steps. This came out exactly 1 year ago, and it had been heralded and marketed for so long as a major turning point in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. This was at last the inclusion of Marvel's first family into the franchise. Considering that Marvel had spent so many years trying to get the rights back so that they could make a Fantastic Four movie in the MCU, Disney acquired 20th Century Fox in 2019. But it would take 6 more years before they finally made this film. In those 6 years, the producers promised something big. A significant game-changing contribution to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And that promise became increasingly more and more important because after Endgame in 2019, the MCU began a steady decline in quality. So by 2025, after a succession of critical and commercial failures, the franchise needed not only a big hit, but an injection of some kind of X factor that would give the film series a sense of new direction. But that's not what happened. Despite all of the build-up, all of the hype and enormous promotion and merchandise, Fantastic Four First Steps came and went last summer like just another completely unremarkable superhero movie flop. The film made $521 million at the box office, as per Box Office Mojo, from a budget of over $229 million. It means that when you include marketing costs, this film didn't break even. Hopes had been so high, and yet it didn't do anywhere near as well as some of the MCU's top performing films. So what went wrong with Fantastic Four First Steps? I ask this because this is the year when Avengers Doomsday is going to be released, and Fantastic Four First Steps was a very important film in setting up that film, because obviously it introduces the Fantastic Four, who play a major role in Doomsday. And I also am talking about this because I've only recently sat down and watched the film for a second time. And while I did like the film well enough last year, I actually liked it a little bit more on second viewing. However, second viewing is also when I started to notice a few more of the film's flaws. But first, the film likely underperformed at the box office because its failure commercially can be attributed to the succession of box office failures in the MCU prior to its release. Thunderbolts, Captain America Brave New World, The Marvels, and Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, along with the general decline in quality of the franchise both on film and television. But it's not the box office failure of Fantastic Four First Steps I want to focus on, it's the creative failure, because it really wasn't a bad movie. It was decent enough. I mean, look, I'd rather watch this film again than something like Iron Man 2, which is quite a poor movie, or Thor the Dark World, or The Incredible Hulk, or Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, and they all made decent money, by the way. The issues that really became noticeable in the film when I watched it the second time were the film's slow start as they attempted to summarize too much of the characters' backstory and origin. How they got their powers, how the world now relates to them. After that set up, we're introduced to the Silver Surfer and then later Galactus. He eats planets. Earth is next on his menu, but conveniently he's willing to spare Earth if he can just have the child of Reed Richards and Sue Storm. They obviously refuse and eventually have to come up with some other way of dealing with him. But the issue is that Galactus is introduced, set up as this all-powerful bad guy, and it's all done too quickly. We don't know who he is. We know nothing about his past. His characterization as the central antagonist in the story relies entirely on the fact that, well, he's gigantic, and that's about it. He's the bad guy who's going to destroy Earth because reasons, and that's really all we have to accept. He has no depth, he's paper thin as a villain, and although Galactus is a well-established old villain from the comics, he's really not done any justice in this film. And then there's the Silver Surfer, Shalla-Bal. She also has an extremely underdeveloped backstory. There's a flashback to her past, but it's just sort of crammed into the story, and it becomes in the end the stereotypical reluctant henchman trope who turns on the main villain, and that's been done many times. The film has a decent cast, I would say, and I found everyone so much more likeable this time around. And the performances are actually very good, though I found that Ben Grimm, the Thing, his story arc really goes nowhere. They try to develop this hint of a romance with the character of Rachel, but that comes to nothing. There's hints of exploring Ben's deep sense of isolation and alienation given his condition, but again, only lip service is paid to this, without any payoff. Nevertheless, Ebon Moss-Bachrach does extremely well with the material he's given, and it helps that the CGI for his character is well realised, even if sometimes his clothes look a little bit rubbery. Pedro Pascal puts in a decent performance as Reed Richards, but it's not his fault that his character is written to be far too insecure and unsure of himself at times. Vanessa Kirby's Sue Storm is written a bit stiff and bland. While not bad per se, this version of Sue Storm is lacking a certain charm and likability. The highlight of the group is Joseph Quinn as Johnny Storm, the Human Torch. He's charming, fun, self-deprecating, brave, and earnest. The relationships between the characters work quite well, and though the film has a few light moments, it's thankfully devoid of the annoying cheap Marvel humour that has ruined so many recent MCU films. So that was another positive. The film actually takes its subject matter seriously, and the tone works. The standout aspect of the film is its incredibly realised world. The 1950s retro futuristic aesthetic of Earth 828 is brilliant and very believable. Visually, the movie looks superb, and the soundtrack, I think, is among the most memorable in recent MCU history, with a brilliant main title score and a beautiful motif melodically woven throughout the movie. That's all the good stuff, but why didn't this film succeed creatively? Simply put, at no point in this film do I find myself worried about the impending doom of Galactus. The film tries to reach for big emotional moments with respect to family, the difficult responsibilities that the Fantastic Four have in being Earth's protectors, and the choices they have to make and so forth. The stakes, the threat of losing their son Franklin, none of it lands with the emotional impact it's trying to achieve. Despite visually looking like a big film, with some really solid action scenes and global stakes, the film feels quite thematically undercooked. This is not a bad movie by any count. I thought it was a solid 7 out of 10, but the drama lacks the intensity it needs. The characters and their acting are fine, the world they inhabit is awesome, but the story is just meh. Yet another vacuous CGI bad guy who wants to destroy Earth because reasons. Maybe we've just seen too many films like that. The idea of a gigantic bad guy from space who eats planets. Didn't we see something very similar to that in the horrendous Transformers Rise of the Beasts just 2 years prior to this film's release? And the other issue is, and I perhaps missed this upon first viewing, the film is not really a multiverse MCU film, and yet it kind of is, because it's stated that this film takes place in Earth 828, an alternate universe to the primary Earth 616 timeline where the Avengers live. So that kind of reduces my concern for the fate of this particular Earth, at least a little bit. That's the issue with the multiverse. There's always another Earth if one is destroyed. The issue is that there's lots of plot elements and character arcs being juggled in the film, that the script is trying to deal with too much all at once, and as a result, each individual aspect of the film, each component, is not given the attention and focus it deserves. The beginning of the film tries to comprehensively establish the Fantastic Four team as quickly as possible in flashbacks and montages. Then the interpersonal relationships have to be set up. Then the threat is introduced. Then we have the baby Franklin story component. Then Galactus. Then the dynamics of his threat, which conveniently includes Franklin. Then Shalabal's story arc. Then the solution as to how the team will deal with Galactus. Then how the world reacts. Then the big end fight in the city. It's all there, but very little of it is sufficiently developed. In the end, Fantastic Four First Steps doesn't do an awful lot wrong. It delivers at a good, not great kind of level. If it had been released sometime in Phase 3 or early Phase 4, it probably would have made a few $100 million more. It wouldn't have been a better film, but it would have made a lot more money. It's heaps better than the snore fest of Black Panther Wakanda Forever or Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. The reason it didn't make as much money as those films is because they came out before it, and they contributed to the downward spiral of the MCU. So by the time First Steps was released, the the damage had been done. The brand of the MCU had lost its luster in the eyes of many fans and casual audiences, and a lot of people had simply checked out. There is also the additional argument that Fantastic Four are simply not iconic enough or popular enough superheroes to warrant their own big-budget theatrical release. Previous Fantastic Four films certainly suggest this. The horrendous 2015 reboot and the two middle-of-the-road Fantastic Four films from 2005 and 2007. It's often argued that Fantastic Four are proof that not every superhero property should be adopted to a live-action movie, and I personally think they worked best in the 90s cartoon series, but after watching First Steps the second time, I actually find myself disagreeing with this assessment, because I think First Steps is a very good proof of concept that the Fantastic Four can theoretically work very well on film, because there's so many aspects of this film that were very nearly perfect, but too much of it all too often falls short of excellence. A stronger script, a more compelling threat, and a story that delivers more impact from its themes. That's what's needed. All the ingredients were there. The potential was there. It just missed the mark on a lot of levels. That's going to do it for now. Thanks very much for watching. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. Take care. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.